Hi there, this is Lindsay and Jessica from the Anglophone South literacy team. We were asked to put together a little presentation for parents and adults at home who are looking to supplement some literacy learning while their children are either learning at home or through any school year.
So we've broken down this presentation into some different concepts of literacy that we start to dig deeper in as we're teaching. So we're going to break it down for things that you can do at home to help support these areas. So playing with words and sounds. So simple things like singing with your child, lullabies, silly word songs. Like I always think of Willoughby Wallaby Woo and Down by the Bay, which helps encourage rhyming. Word play with our kids, like tongue twisters and silly rhymes, pretend play. I often think of trying to come up with jokes with my children to talk about knock knock jokes. Thinking about action rhymes, so head and shoulders, knees and toes, 5 green and speckled frogs, wheels on the bus, and 5 little monkeys. These are great finger plays and action rhymes that help encourage early learning phonological awareness skills. Musical instruments, grabbing whatever's in your house that can help drum beats, so rhythm sticks or tapping on a play drum. All of this helps encourage working on syllables, which is another skill that we start to develop once we hit school. And then we're looking at the sound symbol relationship. When we hit school age, teachers refer to this as phonics building, phonics skills. So if we're working on the alphabet sound play, so singing the alphabet song, I can't tell you how important this is in developing this sound symbol relationship. So building alphabet puzzles with our kids. There's a great one at the dollar store that has A to Z and simple matching the symbols and putting them in order. Alphabet stories. I know my son's favorite is looking at Z the Zamboni, and everything has to do with hockey from A to Z. So talking about sounds and letters. So once we have that sound symbol filing system built, we can talk about words like, can you find me something that starts with the sound P? Can you find me something that rhymes with cat? And then maybe they can go grab a bat. So just working on that sound symbol relationship with our students or with our children. Playing with letters. So having lots of different types of letters in our environment. So I love to hit up the dollar store. So wooden letters, they often have that in the crafts section. Right now, my personal favorite is the plastic letters. They have great uppercase letters right now in the dollar store that are plastic, and I take these outside with my kids. And they're excellent because they're large. They're about 4 inches, and you can put them in the mud. Right now, we're using them in the snow. So you can have messy wordplay with your kids, and then I hose them off and they're ready for the next game and next time we're outside. Using sandpaper with helping build our letter skills. And that's if your child has that sensory need and they can practice making the letter formation, just tracing the sandpaper. There's even smell letters that you can make at home. If you make the shapes of the letters and use a smelling Jello flavor, you can just, if it's strawberry, you can put glue on the letter, sprinkle some Jello on top of it, and then it smells and it's great. Again, it's a sensory activity with your kiddos. And then those letter stamps that we find, again, just stamping the letters, letter sounds, they can make words and names. That's all encouraging letter play. Then we're going to look at concepts of print. So when we have books in front of us, we're going to talk about changing the voice to match the characters in the story. Encourage pointing to words or the pictures when you're reading, and point out who the author and illustrator are in the stories that you read. I know in my house, we really enjoy Robert Munsch, and my kids know him by name, and they actually ask for him often for their bedtime story. So just reiterating all those components when we have our kiddos and we're practicing the skills at home. And then having mark making materials available for your kids in different parts of your house. I am lucky enough to have a pantry that has different paints and markers and smelly markers and glitter pens, all different mark making materials so my kids can go in and grab whatever they want. It just helps to encourage more authentic writing at home and builds that sound symbol relationship for writing and as well as reading. And just different types of paper. So having sticky notes, fancy papers, sometimes during the theme times of the year for Christmas or Valentine's, I can get different fancy writing paper that I put out for my kids just to engage in play.
So you can continue that sound letter relationship as students learn new skills. So when we think about as students move into, the second grade or, up to grade 5 and beyond, engaging them with activities that you would normally do yourself around the house, they can certainly help to write grocery lists. That was a very popular one with my kids because that's how they got exactly what they wanted. Having them write, email, text letters to family or friends. So that's a great way to engage them not only with other people, but getting them to practice any new skills that they've learned and sounding out their words as they do these texting activities. Read recipes. And they don't have to be difficult recipes, but engaging your child to help you read through the recipe and going over even just the format of how a recipe is written is so different than what they might be used to in a storybook or in a chapter book. But it's all, it's all a different way of reading, and it really speaks to what they're going to need to be able to do later on in life too. And writing recipes, and that doesn't again have to be difficult. It can be getting them to help write out how to make hot chocolate or how to make a sandwich. What do you need? What are the ingredients? And even if they're not at that writing stage, then talking it out, because the oral part of this is very important too, and engaging them orally with a lot of these different vocabulary words that you would find in recipes. Practice reading nursery rhymes and familiar text, songs, and poems to practice fluency. So I know often we think of nursery rhymes as a preschool books or poems that we would use, but children at that age often can't read them. So it's matching later on, it's matching that text to what the rhymes that they know and seeing it in print. So it's really, really useful to use different print that the students are familiar with, rather than them having to worry about decoding words and new words, sounding them out. If the purpose is for fluency, then they can focus on that rather than how to say the word. And turning on captions to your kids' favorite television shows. This is something that my Netflix did for some reason. The captions were on there, and I found when I was watching television shows or a movie that I was actually reading along with the characters as they were speaking. And I'm a fluent reader, but I still naturally went to that, and so it's a lot of exposure that children wouldn't normally be exposed to when they're watching videos or television shows. And so you can put it on, and I think that they naturally engage with it to an extent, and they start to see words that they recognize. And before long, they, hopefully are reading along with the characters. So some of the materials that we might use, we would use these at school, but we can also use them at home. When Jessica was talking about different activities that you can use with your children, you can use the silly scented markers. We're just always trying to find ways to engage the children, because anything new and novel is going to lure them into the learning piece. And using magnetic letters with the cookie sheets. If it's magnetic, then it can be taken, into the car. It can be transported easily because the letters are going to stick to the tray. And so, you could take this to the hockey rink if an older brother or sister's playing hockey. Doing the alphabet puzzles. I think, we've seen these ones at Winners or Marshalls. Sometimes you can get them at the dollar store. So keeping your eye out for some of these materials that you could use at home. And then the rainbow writing. We picked up some of those, and they really drew my eye to them because it's, you write on these black sheets of paper and a rainbow comes through. And so it really makes you want to do some writing in order to make that happen. And for older students, they can play some more difficult games, I guess, like categories, and you are categorizing different words according to, maybe the letter that they begin with. The Mad Libs is something that's been around a long time, and it's fun for the students to create a poem or a passage using different parts of speech, like nouns and adjectives, and they don't know what it's going to say until the end, which is lots of fun for them to see how silly it ends up. Headbands, it's a guessing game and teaching children how to ask questions that would target certain things. And how to, teaches them how to eliminate what wouldn't make sense. And bananagrams is much like, what's that game, Jessica? Scrabble. Couldn't think of it earlier either. It's much like Scrabble, so they're putting words together that they know and spelling them out. So again, these are just some ideas that you could use at home. And oftentimes the students know how to play them because they've used them at school too. And so then, you can let them be the teacher if you're not sure how to engage with them or what to do. But I will say that one of the really important pieces is you sitting down with them to play these games because, like I said, if you can engage them through them being the teacher and showing you how to do these things, they want you there with them, which we know it's not always possible, and home life can be hectic sometimes, but taking the time for this, this fun learning piece is really important.
Now we're going to talk about oral language. This is currently my role working with early childhood, and we cannot say how important and fundamental this is to all literacy skills. Oral language is the foundation of our language system. So talk, and more talk with your kiddos. So anytime we can be engaging in conversation with our children is helping activate and develop those language systems, which are so important for literacy skill building in school. So when you're at home, label everything. Anything that you're doing in your daily life, because we're all busy. So if you're brushing your teeth, if you're getting dressed, helping your kiddo get ready for school, just talk about all the different things that you're doing just all the time. So I'm going to wear these red pants today. Look, your pants are blue and your shirt is orange. Wow, you look spiffy. Just any time that we can be engaging in conversation, giving lots of descriptive details about things that we're seeing in our environment is helping build the vocabulary for our kids. So you're talking while you're doing all these daily activities and outside as well. So if you're out there and you're seeing the beach or the ocean, if you're in the woods, in the forest, whatever you're doing, if you're in the city, just talk about what you're seeing, what you're hearing, what you're feeling. So think about your senses and just say it out loud. Be very descriptive in the language that we're using with our kiddos. And all of this is building, again, that solid foundation. We talked a bit about games already. So adding games with your kids just helps build, again, that oral vocabulary. So playing I spy something that is red. Sometimes as the kids get older, you can change it to I spy something that rhymes with car, or I spy the letter T and it's something in the room that starts with T. So you can change the game and make it appropriate for your child. The opposite game, so learning what is the same and what is different about a lot of our words in our language, again, helps build that system. So if I'm going, oh, I'm really hot, what's the opposite of hot? It's cold. So just any time that we can be encouraging what the opposite or what is the same or what is different about words in our language helps that with build vocabulary with our kids. I love to play Guess My Animal with my own children. So this is a game we often do at supper time or if we're in the car on these long hockey trips or just driving and we all take a turn. So I'm thinking of an animal and everyone in the car has to ask a question to help figure out what the animal is. So my kids, even my youngest, who is now 5, when she was 3, she could say, is it an herbivore? Is it an omnivore? Um, does it live in the Arctic? Does it live in the jungle? So as they got older, their questions and their vocabulary expanded and their questions became more specific. It just helps build, again, that background knowledge and categorization, which is all important to vocabulary building. Playing Simon Says is the game that we are all familiar with, and playing it with our kids and then just making it harder the older that they get. Guess Who is excellent, again, for asking and answering questions to help build that. And we've talked a bit about headbands. This does the same. And then Would You Rather. This is great for my older kids. I have 2 older girls as well. And sometimes we'll go back and forth and play a bit of truth and dare, which is fun with my older girls, just trying to get them engaged in the games as well. Then play. So what parts of my house can sometimes get overrun with dramatic play? And this is just encouraging like block play with your kids. Loose parts. My little guy's really into hockey, so we'll often have hockey rinks and areas set up in my house. He also has like toy Zambonis and different hockey players, and we like to take tinfoil, and that's the ice. So he plays with that. But while he's playing, he's using words and vocabulary that go with hockey. So he's helped developing that oral language. My daughter's really into Playmobil. We have lots of toys that go with an outside safari, and she has pandas and flamingos and koala bears. So again, she has all these areas set up in bins that she takes out. She creates play that she's using, again, expanding her vocabulary. If it's a great snow day, sometimes my kids get out the recyclables and we build things with them. If you have boxes and cardboard boxes from Amazon or different boxes from larger packages, you can turn them into rockets or restaurants or pizza ovens or coffee shops, a donut place, something that will engage in dramatic play with your child. And then we're talking about taking it outside. Anytime you can get outside with your kiddos to help encourage play in the environment outside, and talking about what you're doing helps build that oral language component. And then encouraging art. So bringing in materials that allow them to paint and play and explore and expand through creative means will, again, help develop a specific skill set for oral language that could talk about color and line, different art techniques. That's all encouraged when you bring out those different materials. Then music, having music in the background of your house. You can have different types of music, and that helps bring in different cultural aspects as well. Sometimes if I want it to be quiet in my house, we turn it down a bit and it's classical music. Sometimes we like to have a dance party, so we grab the speaker and we're jumping around the house and we're dancing to music. Currently, right now, all of my kids are singing in canto music, and this brought up some great vocabulary discussion because there was words that my child didn't know, like mischievous and thrive were 2 of the vocabulary words in a song that she was singing. So this presented a great opportunity for me to talk to her about what they meant. So again, it's just pulling out those literacy skills in things and activities and games that our kids are already doing and just trying to encourage that at home or engage in it with them. So here's some visuals just to give you an idea of what we're talking about. So there's Guess Who. You can see where you're describing the characters that the kids can see, and you're pointing those out. And it's a game that's great to play. It's one-on-one. Getting outside, you can see this kiddo and their adult are creating some kind of snow sculpture together. We get outside as much as we can. It helps develop that oral language. Headbands is a game that we talked about, but there is a Headbands Junior. This is a Disney edition. It has all the characters, which is great to play with your kids. And this is just an idea of dramatic play that was taken from a classroom. And you can see here it's like a pizza place, but we've had donuts. We've actually set up a movie theater before, and my kids have created like the list of all the different snacks that you can get from the movie. They also created movie posters, and then it just is engaging. And then we sat down, pop popcorn, and watched the movie. So whatever dramatic play you can engage in with your kids will help develop those oral language skills.
So it's really important to, as Jessica spoke about, to keep talking. And it doesn't end when our students are, done grade 2. Keep talking in upper elementary. Storytelling is so important. And I think as parents, sometimes we get caught up in the hecticness of our home lives and shuttling kids here and there. But those are all opportunities really to be telling stories. And you can tell stories. You don't have to be, Robert Munch storytelling, genius. You can just tell children's stories about how their name was chosen, or about the day that they were born, or just something maybe that they don't remember, or spark a memory and say, hey, remember when this happened, or talk about your childhood or your grandparents, things that I find kids are really naturally curious about, but they're things that we tend to forget to talk about. My children love to hear about, just things that happened when they were younger, or things about, their grandparents. And sometimes I forget to, talk about the older people who aren't with us anymore. And there's just so many opportunities. Like I said, you can do it while you're making supper, or, when the kids are getting ready. Maybe they're younger and they're in the tub, and you can, talk about stories then, or at the supper table. Bedtime doesn't always have to be a book in hand. It can be lights out and just laying there and telling a story. And it doesn't have to be a true story. It can be about how I used to tell stories to my son about how he was the hero in the hockey game and scored the game-winning goal. And he loved it because, of course, he got the game-winning goal. And and I'd include his friends in the story. And so if you spark, an interest in your children, they love to hear stories, and all the opportunities when you're driving. And unfortunately, those are often times when kids are now, plugged into their devices because, they're quiet. They're not going to fight with each other. They're not going to, distract you when you're driving. But, sometimes it's one of those things where there's a time and a place for it. And going around to, short drives, or even if you go out to the countryside somewhere where, your kids have never been before, it's nice for them to look out the windows rather than be looking down at a screen. And then often giving them opportunities to tell you stories, and really stopping what you're doing and engaging with your children about what they have to say, and getting them to tell their stories, and asking them questions, and really showing, with eye contact, that you are listening to their story. And, even we as teachers, when we have 21 children coming at us all at once, sometimes we have to, ask kids to take their turns, but we certainly want everyone to have their turn because we all want to be here, want to be heard. And I always liken it to if I'm driving to work and something exciting happens or something terrible happens, I want to talk about it when I get to work and tell someone. And I would never want to be, faced with a hand up, with someone saying, oh, I don't have time to listen to you. And the same goes with, something has happened during your child's day and they want to tell you about it, then, we, like I said, there's really nothing much more important. Supper can wait a few minutes while they have that opportunity to share. And striving for 5. This is something that we as teachers try to do, and it's about engaging with the child with at least 5 back and forth exchanges using open-ended comments or questions about what they are doing or what they're talking about. And open-ended means, we're not just looking for a one-word answer, we're looking for a little bit of an explanation and then asking another question about it. And we will often, it's hard sometimes to take the time and not just move on quickly. So we might put our hand by our side and use our fingers to press against our thigh. Okay, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, kind of, almost until we train ourselves, till we become that good of a listener that we naturally do it, because I don't think it's something that we have naturally been doing as adults. So just the talking piece in upper elementary is just as important as it is with our little ones, because we want them to keep sharing their knowledge, sharing their vocabulary, and exposing them to all of those things. And they need to have opportunities to do that and know that you're interested in hearing them. So real life experiences offer so many opportunities for vocabulary building. And as our students move into upper elementary, there is more of a focus on vocabulary building and being exposed to, trickier words, those tier 2 words. If you've heard that saying before, it's the words that are beyond the obvious, and more specific words about specific topics. And so not only can the students build their vocabulary, they're going to build knowledge around what they're being exposed to. So, I have a picture there of an adult with a child, and they are working on, making breakfast and following a recipe and just having those times together rather than excluding the children and just letting them, play on their tablet until breakfast is ready and then come and eat, and away they go again, including them. And obviously the younger we do this, the better, because it becomes a nice habit or routine. And coming up with different traditions, like Jessica referred to as, snow days. What is the expectation for a snow day? And it should be, getting outside and enjoying some fresh air and having that opportunity. The ice fishing shacks that, we are surrounded by water where we live, and we need to take advantage of it. But, a lot of kids have never seen the ice fishing shacks, and they're not just shacks. It's a whole village that, in Renforth, I think they have them at Dominion Park. I know just down the road from me, there's another little village. And it's really quite something to see. And it's probably not something that I saw until I was an adult. So it's just a matter of, looking around and talking it out with your child. What are they seeing? And using those descriptive words. And then, teaching them. And sometimes they can teach you, or they can, kids will go home and talk about something that their friend was talking about, and then all of a sudden the whole family becomes engaged in it. There's so many opportunities for learning, and it's not just, sitting at a table with pencil and paperwork.
So we're going to talk about books now. Lindsay and I really wanted to start with things that might not be as obvious as helping to build literacy skills. We all have been told from birth on that we need to be reading to our kiddos. So we need to read to our kiddos. And when we're talking about written material, we're just going to give some ideas of things that you might not think about. And the first is a wordless picture book. And that is a picture book that doesn't have any text in it. There's lots of research now telling us that these are really helpful for kids to help develop comprehension skills by looking at all the context clues, looking at the pictures, and you can tell a story by looking at the imagery. This is great for kids who have not mastered the written code yet and their alphabetic knowledge is still in the building phase. This gives them some confidence in that, oh, I can read this book because there's no words. But then on the flip side, when I hand these to older students and older kiddos, they're quite surprised that there's no text, and then it throws them off a bit. But then they have to go back and really see what those pictures are telling to help develop a story. So they're helping build like characters and what's the setting, and they're doing lots of inferencing. So it's building skills for both young kids as well as our older students. So thinking again, nonfiction books and using authentic materials. So just having a variety of reading materials in our house. So I know that graphic novels are really popular. There's lots of magazine subscriptions that we can get for our kids. There are lots of good reading apps available for our tablets. And lots of different places that our kids can go to look for high interest reading information as well. So if your child's really interested in space, you can start finding maybe things that talk about space to help build that background knowledge, and then maybe reading books about space, taking a trip to the library, seeing what you already have in your library at home that would help engage with their interest in what your kiddo is looking at and in finding engagement in. Also, just thinking about books, and like I know my kids like to read in different spots in my house. Sometimes we'll build tents, sometimes we'll cuddle up in a chair. I've even had my kids read in the bathtub. So it's just different things with and without water. It can be just as much fun. So those are all just the written materials that we can have in our house. So when you are reading, it's important that you talk about the book with your kiddo. You can just talk about the themes, what's happening. I think Lindsay already mentioned pause, take a moment, talk about what's happening. What do you think is going to happen next? When you are reading, if the adult could model fluency, and that's just changing our voice and changing for different characters, changing the volume, that just will help model what reading looks like when you are a fluent reader for your kiddo. Again, we talked a bit about reading the pictures and then helping connect that to the text as well. I know this character's happy because I can see there's a smile face here. It just helps with engagement when we're reading with our kids. Read the same books often. I'm sure your kiddo already has a couple of favorite, but that happens and develops over time because you've read that story and they've encountered it. It's just a familiar place for your kiddo to hear the same stories over and over again. You can try to not say a word, see if your child chimes in. You can also see if you can skip a page. Did they notice that you skipped a page? And I always like to go, oh, I was so silly, and go back. But it's great building those skills at home with your kids. You can also put together loose parts. So if I'm reading a story about bear going on a bear hunt is one of our house favorites, and then there's lots of different things that happen in the storybook, and I can grab a bear from my house and maybe a couple of characters from my Playmobil set, and we can retell the story together of the journey that happens on the bear hunt. So that's just called loose parts play with retelling the story. Then I can leave that book out on the table or on the bedroom floor with those parts for my child to go play with. Maybe it's just sitting there for when they come home from their activities or from school, and it's just sitting there ready for them to engage with. It's just all helping build literacy skills at home. So again, we just put some images for you. So those wordless picture books, I know maybe we may not be as familiar with. So these are a couple of titles that Lindsay and I really like. Goodnight Gorilla is one of our favorites in this house. A Ball for Daisy is really sweet. Chalk is also very good. Tuesday's great for upper elementary. I think the Lion one's called Imagine. That one's great as well. Then you can see again that loose parts or materials that we put out for our kids to engage in this actual provocation, which is just those materials put out, is going on a bear hunt. So you can see they're going through the grass, they're going through the mud, they're going through the snowstorm. All those different materials are left there for the child to go play and retell those different parts of the story. And then at the bottom is those pizza pamphlets. So this is just finding real life materials for your child to read and engage in. So they have menus that they can look at, which is authentic reading materials for your kids.
And reading in upper elementary can still be fun and engaging. You can still use picture books. The students, they love these, and they have, beautiful illustrations in them. But what you can use them for, even if they're, great independent readers, is to hone in on some of the new vocabulary, check for understanding. So even though, sometimes we have students who can read very fluently, sometimes their comprehension's not there. So checking for understanding means that we're asking questions after, a page or two, and having the student retell what has happened so far. And like I said, some kids can read, with great accuracy, and yet may not have the comprehension yet. And so this is a way to check for that. Continue to read to your child, even once they can read independently. So when you do this, there's so many reasons to do it. For me, the first one would be just having that special time with your child and you reading to them. They love to be read to. You're modeling good reading habits. You are engaged with it, so that shows them, your love, hopefully, for reading and the importance of it. You're modeling, like I said, different, fluency skills and volume and character voices, and also giving them time to read independently. But kids even in middle school love to be read to. And I've gone into, I remember doing it in a high school class, and they said, "What are you doing?" And I said, "I'm going to read to you." And they sat there and they listened and they loved it because it's kind of relaxing. Reading along. So that just means, maybe you and the child both have a copy of the text, or you have it and you're reading it and have them track, which means just follow along with their finger in their book, or if they have a tablet with the story on it. Just, somehow having two copies and engaging the child as you are reading. Exposure to fiction and nonfiction. So, yes, kids love the silly Robert Munch books or fairy tales, but they also love nonfiction texts that they learn so many things from. That depends on their interests. Could be animals, it could be hibernation, or the Arctic, but it also could be something new that they don't know much about and they want to learn about. They don't know what they don't know. Take your child to the local library so they can choose books they would like to read. And we just find that they're more likely to come home and really want to engage with those books if they have picked them out. And, even if it's one that they can't necessarily read all the words, and they want to, look at the pictures, it's fine. It's all building a love of literacy and engaging in a literate way. And that's exactly what we want. So as Jessica talked earlier about play and dramatic play and the importance of that, it doesn't end. And it certainly shouldn't end in upper elementary. And when kids are at home, kids should be, acting like kids and playing and engaging and talking. Play is often talked about as if it were a relief from serious learning. But for children, play is serious learning. Play is really the work of childhood. And Fred Rogers said that, and it can't be more true because, if children aren't expected to play when they're children, then when are they? We all know that there's not always a lot of time for play as we get to do this adulting thing. Scientists have recently determined that it takes approximately 400 repetitions to create a new synapse in the brain, unless it is done with play, in which case it takes between 10 to 20 repetitions. So if we can allow our children to engage in play and learn new things through play, just that hands-on experience and engaging with it in a playful way, it embeds it in their brain much more easily than just listening to it over and over again or being told something over and over. It's that engagement that play brings that's so important. So we would like to thank you for clicking on to our presentation here. Certainly, if we are here with the district as literacy coaches, but your teachers are your child's primary educators. They know your child, better than we don't know your children, so they would know what their needs are. If you have questions, please reach out to them specifically. Certainly, we are here for backup. But thank you for clicking onto this because parents are the first teachers in their children's lives, and they have a variety of adults who are in their child's lives, and we can all play our part to grow these kids into literate adults. So thank you.
Thank you.